Is it going to happen?
Here we go. What's going on, everybody? We're back. Episode number 186 of the Club and Sub podcast. Also, Legs, tweet it out if you haven't yet. I forgot to tell you that while we were off air.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Yeah, guys, we're getting there. We're almost up to 200 shows here. We are a couple months away from that. We're going to have to we'll do something fun for the 200th episode of Club and Sub. But yeah, brick by brick, baby. This week we're talking UFC 304, pretty big card. We got the main event, Leon Edwards taking on Belal Muhammad, and the co-main event, Curtis Blaydes taking on Tom Aspinall. Really weird in that both of these fights ended very suddenly and very weirdly. Like the Belal Leon first fight, Belal gets poked in the eye, fight stops, Aspinall Blaydes, Aspinall tears his ACL. So it's a cool co-main and main, and it's honestly a pretty good card all the way around, up and down. But before we get into that, guys, if you like the show, drop a like, subscribe. It helps us out. We appreciate it. We're going to be trying to bring you guys a little bit better content in the near future. I am currently talking about getting some tech revamps to the show, which should make it a bit cooler. And yeah, we're brought to you guys by Fight Numbers, guys. I mention it every week, but for 30% off of your first month with Fight Numbers, use the promo code CLUB, CLUB. Great crew over there. John Kelly has arguably the best DFS projections in the business. He is running the live odds screen. You can see every live line across every book, domestic and foreign, and it updates in real time. It's very, very cool, and it's a huge help if you're playing live. Rather than use 20 tabs or having to use 3 screens like myself and like what I've been doing for years, you can actually just have it all there on one screen. So, again, Fight Numbers. And they also got a great crew of handicappers over there if you want to check them out. Pepe Sylvia, our boy Evan D, Ozzy P, all of them very, very good bettors and just great guys in general. So, again, for 30% off of your first month there, use the promo code CLUB for fightnumbers.com. Yeah, before we get into this card, let's talk about last week real quick. For me, I had a great week. I dropped on Saturday morning, and I'm going to keep doing this. And honestly, depending on how long DK keeps doing this, maybe I'll eventually just add a bonus show at the end of the week. But I dropped in a bunch of strike takedown props on Twitter on Saturday. They went 5-1, absolutely smashed. I had on the card itself, on my pre-bets, I was up 6.55 units. I had Verna to win a unit and a half at minus 139. That won pretty easily. I had the under 2.5 at plus 150 there for a unit. That won. I had 2.5 units on Kurt Holloway plus 126. That also won. And I had 2 units on Thomas Patterson plus 120, which also won. Unfortunately, the one blemish on the record last week was Sung Woo Choi, who did in fact die. And my friend Lags and I here did have a shot bet. I don't know. Can you see it on here, or is the digital background screwing
I can see it?
Yep,
I can see it.
Got some Fireball. We're going to load it up right now. I was out last night with my dad for his 75th birthday. Took him to a really nice restaurant. Le Bernardine. Nice. Yeah, 3-star Michelin restaurant. Really, really went all out. My dad's not much of a drinker. So, I didn't really expect that we would drink much, if at all. But my dad's like, yeah, why don't we stop at a bar before we go? I'm like, all right, we can do that. So we each have 2 old fashions. I'm like, oh my God, this fucking old man's going to be on his ass before this is over. Then we get into the restaurant, and it's a 7 course meal, and they have a wine pairing they offer, with it. And my dad's like, why don't we do the wine pairing? I'm like, it's your birthday.
Damn.
We can do it. Yeah. I'm thinking it's going to be 1 sip of wine each. It's 80% of what you'd probably pour yourself in a glass. So it was 7 glasses of wine that came through. And then at the end of the night, I'm like, oh my God, I'm worried I'm getting sick in the Uber. My dad's like, why don't we have an Irish coffee? I'm like, what the hell got into you? So I did that. I was bombed on a Tuesday night. So this is about to be really painful. All that is to say. But cheers. Lags was the winner. Hopefully I'll finally win one of these eventually.
Oh, you did before. I had to take 2 shots.
Did I? That's possible.
Oh, yeah, you did.
What?
Yeah, no, you won. Who did you? Who was it? It wasn't too long ago. Anyway, that's all right.
Anyway, how was your week last week?
Slight loss for me, honestly, and it kind of bummed personally because on the Holloway fight as a whole, I had a unit on Kurt at plus 110, but I also had the under at minus 130, which was a horrible beat personally, I think. I had the under 3.5 rounds in the main event at -115. That cashed. And then I don't want to hear your opinion on this, but
I thought the under in the Hollowball fight was really good, honestly. Like that was crazy. That went the distance.
Dude, that was a sick beat. Yeah. But so the fight I was gonna say was Ogden and Loic. So I had somebody to not win by unanimous decision at -125. I thought either guy could have finished. And personally, I don't know what you think. I think that should have been a split.
I actually kind of thought Loic won the fight, to be honest with you. I don't think there was any value on him just because of how dominant Ogden was able to, be. But I don't think that was bad. This is the thing that drives me nuts with where we are in judging in 2024 is like we prioritize a different thing every single week, it seems like. Like Loic obviously outdamaged him in both rounds 2 and 3, in my opinion. Like very obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
But there were 2 30-27 cards in there. And like round 2, right? Or was it 1? But even like round 2, Loic beats the brakes off him for 3 minutes, and then Ogden gets him down and is kind of just in mount trying to sub him for 2 minutes. Yeah, I mean, Big Steve's dad, which I'm assuming is our boy Giga Chad, just said at the sequencing it was reversed. Like, I agree, but like based on how things have been getting scored these days, like I feel like that was a pretty obvious round for Loic. And then round 3, I mean, seemed pretty obvious for Loic as well to me. So,
yep.
I thought he won the fight, honestly, but I don't think it was bad. But yeah, we move into this huge card here, UFC 304. Dude, it's kind of, it's funny. I thought I was going to miss this card because I'm hosting a bunch of my friends and their kids over for a barbecue Saturday. And I'm like, it's in the UK. It's got to be a noon start time. Turns out they're starting at a normal American time. And like the main event is going off.
I didn't think they were.
Oh, yeah, they're starting at.
For some reason, I thought they weren't. Yeah, for some reason I thought they were early.
Yeah, maybe because they're in England. That maybe you're because they're in England. You thought they were.
Not just because they were in England. Honestly, I thought that, but then I was looking. I think I was looking at the other card. Was the Sandhagen Saeed fight?
Yeah, is that a daytime card? That probably is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's just weird. So like, first of all, that arena is going to be fucking rowdy. I mean, the main event's going off is going to go off around 5 a.m. their time, which is fucking wild, to be honest. Yeah, it's so dumb. But the plus side of that is I'm not going to miss the card at all. I'll probably be hungover for it. But let's jump into it. I have a lot of action on this card. I don't know about you, and I'll probably have some more. Yeah.
And
so
speaking of action, though, before we get into the card, though, the main event, last fight, Verna significant strikes under. Easily printed.
Oh, yeah. That was
50 and a half. I mean, we were looking through the stats. I mean, there was literally one fight where she eclipsed that.
Dude, I had Lemos under too, 57 and a half. They landed 4 significant strikes in the whole fight.
Unreal.
But first fight of the night. This is like the one really bad fight on this card. We got Shauna Bannon, who has no business being in the UFC, taking on Alice Ardene, who also really has no business being in the UFC. Current line, Bannon -160, Ardene +140. Money seems to be coming in on Ardene. Do you agree with the line move here, Legs?
I kind of do. I mean, well, for starters, it's the battle of the OnlyFans, John, if you didn't know.
Is Ardene on OnlyFans? I did not know that.
Yep. Dump truck.
Good for her.
Absolute dump truck. Yeah, no, I do agree with the line move because I think it's a low-level fight in general, but I think Ardene probably throws a bit more on the feet. I mean, she's super sloppy. Both girls are pretty hittable in general. So I think it's largely just a close fight that goes the distance. So I understand the +130, +140 shots, but I think she's just fought an absolute bum level of competition. It's just hard to really gauge. I think just absolute low-level shitters, personally.
Yeah, I don't have much of a read on it either because, like, Ardene has fought some pretty good fighters, but they smashed her. So,
yeah. You can't really gauge.
It's like, what do I get from that? Shauna Bannon's awful. Not a very good striker. Not a very good grappler. Ardene seems to be equally awful, maybe worse. But honestly, I haven't looked too deeply at this fight, to be quite honest. I've looked at almost every fight on the card, and just not really at this one. I feel like Bannon, she fought Bruno Brazil pretty close, and I think that's a better performance than anything I've seen with Ardene, so the line's probably fine. But yeah, this is an easy pass. I mean, this card, this is a good reason to start the card late, to be honest.
Yeah.
Start watching the card late, I mean.
I think if Bannon had any kind of like wrestling upside in general, like I don't think her wrestling is good at all, but if she did, I think that's probably where that favorite upside would be.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Moving on, though, we got Mick Parkin. He's taking on Lucas Drezeski, I think is how it's pronounced, if I'm not mistaken. Current price,
Yep.
Parkin minus 280. Comeback on Drezeski plus 240. I actually parlayed Mick Parkin here. I will warn everybody that I do not parlay often, and when I do, it does not usually go well. So fair warning. 1.5 unit parlay here, plus 104. I'll tell the other one later when it comes up. But yeah, I think Parkin's fine here. My initial instinct before I taped it was Drezeski might have some value on him. But honestly, rewatching the Walter Walker fight, I felt like he looked pretty bad in the grappling there. Like Walker never really got to dominant positions, but I kind of feel like that was more a product of Walker just being pretty bad than Drezeski doing really anything particularly good. You know, he was doing like all the wrong things to get up, in my opinion. Like those positions should not have been difficult to get out of. Obviously, he's reasonably high output on the feet, but he's very, very gassy. I don't think he packs really any power. He kicks legs, but they're like slapping kicks that have like no impact at all. And I just think he's kind of a bum. He's a bum grappler. And like Parkin has been one of my nemesis. I bet him on Contender Series, but I unfortunately faded him large with Muhammad Usman and Jamal Pogues, which
I think there's argument Mo could have won that fight personally, but
it was a close fight. But I shouldn't have bet 3 units on it, to be honest.
No.
Stupid.
that didn't go well. Yeah, that's fair.
But Parkins, you know, he's a blue collar lunch pail, bring your lunch pail to work type guy. You know, like good boxer, strong leg kicks, measures distance reasonably well for a heavyweight. Pretty good grappler, decent wrestler, very, very good on top. BJJ black belt. I don't think he's ever really coming for like the top 5 or 10, but he's not bad anywhere, and he's a plus grappler against a guy who is a gassy slob who is a very big minus grappler and not really great anywhere. I feel like Parkin should be in the minus 300, 350 range here. I think he handles this fight fine. What do you think, Legs?
Don't really disagree. I guess the only pause I would give to laying the number is if he doesn't have that wrestling success or doesn't go to the wrestling, it's tough for me to see him having huge margins on the feet.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But no, I completely agree. I think Drezeski's not very good, very sloppy. Cardio's not very good. He's pretty hittable himself. He just throws a lot of jank volume out there, really.
And at the end of the day, they're in England, too, for what it's worth, which does feel like I actually, on this card, where I am fading English fighters, I'm trying to be a little bit cautious with my sizing. Like, there's a couple spots where I was considering going pretty big, and I'm just not because it's just a weird card. It's in Manchester, and it's in the middle of the night. It's like, you know, just trying to be careful with it.
Now, last thing to add on the fight real quick. Even though it is being a, you know, pretty big heavyweight fight, I think GTD at minus 165 isn't horrible, but again, a lot of juice for that too.
I think the risk in GTD is closer to sub than anything else, to be honest, in my opinion. I actually am kind of interested in sub, but Coliseum says Mick Parkin versus Shamil Gaziev. I'd enjoy that. That would be good matchmaking. Gaziev's fighting next week though. He's fighting Dontelli Mays next week. So anyway, though. Yeah, disgusting. I'm probably not going to do it. No, that's a live maze, you know, or pass. I'm so scarred from the maze fight with who's that fat little Iranian wrestler? Hamdi. God, that was fucking AIDS. I am very scarred from that fight. Moving on though, Sam Patterson, he's taking on Kiefer Crosby. Should be a banger fight here. Patterson, large favorite, minus 400. The comeback on Crosby. Plus 300. What are your thoughts here, Lex?
Should be a banger fight for as long as it lasts. I mean, the under 1.5 is minus 200, and I think for good reason, personally. I don't think much of Crosby. He's just kind of a brawler, will come forward, has decent power, but is super hittable. Huge minus grappler like Drezeski we talked about in the last fight. I think Patterson, this big favorite upside comes from the grappling. So, again, I understand why the sub's getting steamed. It's like minus 135. Personally, I think the under 1.5 in the sub hit, but I just don't think there's a ton of value in either current lines.
Yeah, I think there's I'm moderately interested in the Crosby KO1. I don't it hasn't really been released domestically yet, but I mean last I saw it was like plus 700 or 800, which feels like a big number against the guy in Patterson whose jaw is perpetually in
it's 550. But yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. I wouldn't play
It's
that.
hitting down. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but I think Patterson should handle him. He's longer, taller. He's a better striker. He's a much better grappler, much better athlete, I think. I can see how Crosby could come in there and bonk him. Like, it's not hard to. Crosby actually kind of gave an okay account of himself for about 4 minutes against Kevin Doucette. But I just don't think he's great, though. And I think Patterson's a guy who's young and improving. And Crosby, I mean, he's like a 32 or 33-year-old who's never was. Like, he's not even a has-been, you know? Like, he's never really done anything significant. Yeah. So I'm not really trying to fade. I think there will be a time to fade Sam Patterson, but I don't think this is it, to be frank. Moving on, though, we got Muhammad Mokaev taking on Pneoc Kape. I thought this got moved to the prelim headliner. This is all the way down.
This is the early prelims.
Dude, what?
Do you think there's any speculation because of maybe a weight miss, and that's why they're doing it?
Well, that, or they're just worried that Mokaev's going to sniff his jockstrap for 15 minutes.
And it's going to be boring. Yeah.
Which is what I think is going to happen. I bet Mokaev.
I do too.
Yeah. I have Mokaev to win 2 units, like -125. I mean, look, I have done not the best job of betting Mokaev fights, but I've done a really good job of betting Kape fights. So I don't know. Something's got to give here.
Where the rubber meets the road. Yep.
Yeah. What happens when an unstoppable force meets a very movable object? I guess what I'll say is I think if you told me Kape comes out here and stuffs takedowns or can get up fairly easily, he's going to win the fight. I mean, look, obviously he's the better striker. He's faster, hits a lot harder. I just don't really have a lot of faith in Kape's grappling, to be frank. And I don't think there's really any tape that suggests that that there's much reason to think he's going to be able to keep this fight standing, you know, and stop takedowns. Like, yeah, he stopped some takedowns against Nicolau. But Nicolau wasn't really setting them up at all well. And Nicolau is also not that great a wrestler. Mokaev is the best wrestler in the division by a fair amount, in my opinion. The way the guy wrestles, it's just very, very different from anything Kape's seen. And, you know, I've seen people talk about his reckless shots from far out. And that was something I used to identify with Mokaev. And I was like, this guy's sloppy. He shoots from too far. Something I noticed, though, especially during the Perez fight, and obviously I bet Perez, which sucked. But especially during that fight, is Mokaev, he's not so concerned with getting you down on the first takedown attempt. It's very much, let me get close and get to a position then where I can chain an attempt to something else. You know, he hit that same, you know, Perez sprawled on like 5 or 6 of his open mat takedowns, and 3 or 4 times he hit that same duck under to get to the back. Whenever he gets... Random Malaka said, I'm shocked to not see John Big on Parsons. Just wait, my friend. But I do think, you know, he's just a different kind of wrestler than anything Kape's fought in the past. And, you know, I think Kape can probably have better success stuffing initial takedowns than most of the guys that Mokaev has fought. I just think he's going to have a hard time dealing with the chaining of Mokaev. And once Kape's grounded, man, he's really not good at all. You know, this is a guy, it's kind of weird because Kape's got all the physical intangibles to be able to be like an explosive grappler, but he just plays guard. You know, we've seen it over and over. He did it against Dvorak, which ultimately worked out because he basically broke Dvorak's arm at the end of the round with a Kimura. But that's not going to happen here. He did it against Nicolau twice. He did it against Ulka Sasaki, who smashed him in the grappling. Yeah, like I think if Mokaev gets him flat, he's going to control him pretty easily. On top of which, now obviously Mokaev's in danger on the feet at any given time, but Kape's not a guy who likes to lead. Like, he only throws volume if you throw it at him, and Mokaev is not a guy who's going to initiate hard exchanges in the pocket. So, like, yeah, I mean, Kape can knock him out. Kape could win a moment-based decision, I suppose. But I actually think there's probably more upside than people are giving credit for Kape kind of struggling to not get just like point fighted a bit on the feet. Would you believe me, Lags, if I told you that Muhammad Mokaev outlands his opponents by more strikes per minute at distance than Belal Kape does?
Personally, it wouldn't surprise me. And now the main reason why I'm saying that, I know you're bringing it up because obviously it's true, but it personally, it doesn't surprise me because Mokaev is very hard to hit on the feet. He minimizes those exchanges, and he gets
he's not like great defensively, but he does avoid engagements, and Kape's a guy who, when guys have come for him, he lets his hands fly, but he's not a guy who leads. And so I actually think Kape's going to have a much harder time getting going than he's had in a lot of his fights. Pepe says, who has Mokaev fought? Mokaev's opponents have a better record than Kape's opponents in the UFC. Fun fact. But anyway, look, I'm not going to be surprised if Kape wins the fight, but I just think Mokaev's a much better grappler. I mean, we've seen Kape struggle with much worse grapplers than Mokaev a number of times from back in Ryzen and in the UFC. It's also kind of one of the things that I always think is funny, and where I think the market tends to under or over adjust for no good reason, is like guys who are ugly looking strikers who are really good grapplers tend to get underpriced against really good strikers for whatever reason. I think Mokaev should be about minus 175 here, to be honest. I just think he's got, the guy has controlled 60% of his octagon, or spent 60% of his octagon time in a control position. He attempts a takedown per minute. Kape, he lands at a better clip at distance than Kape does. Yeah, I like Mokaev. What do you think?
I think Mokaev around 60% is fine to me, because I think while there are a lot of like red flags going through Mokaev's tape, it's like the biggest red flag, people might point to is in the Perez fight. Perez didn't, or I should say, in terms of Perez's chance of winning the fight, he didn't throw a ton. His volume was low. Like the fight was on the table for sure. Well, Kape doesn't throw a ton of volume himself on the feet. Like you mentioned already, the guy's a counter striker. So to me, I feel like he's going to be on the defense a ton in this fight. Mokaev's going to be able to land those takedowns. And again, short of a knockout, I do think Mokaev rolls to a decision here.
Yeah, I think Charles could win, or not Charles. I think Kape could win a decision. I just feel like he doesn't give himself enough. His work rate is so low, if left to his own devices, that winning a decision is probably going to be predicated on moments, which, he hits very hard. He's probably the best athlete in the division. So, obviously that's in play. I just think Mokaev is a very, very disciplined. It's kind of funny because he has fought closer than he should have in a lot of his fights, but he's a very disciplined fighter in his approach. He is not going to ever spend time hanging out in the pocket, which I think could be problematic. But we'll see. The winner of this
what's funny too. Yeah, I was gonna say what's funny too is pretty much all these fights where I'm saying he does have red flags on it. He's getting caught in sticky submissions. It's not like it's It's not on the feet where he's getting he's knocked down. He's not finding those takedowns.
I was actually kind of interested in the sub number, but it's fucking shit. So are the late
I think it was a decision personally.
But the winner of this fight is going to fight for a title in all likelihood. But we'll see. Moving on, though. Very good fight here. Curious your take. We got Oban Elliott. He's taking on Preston Parsons. Been a lot of money coming in on Elliott all week here. Current price, Parsons minus 140. The comeback on Elliott plus 120. What are your thoughts?
First bet of the card. This is one where I don't understand the line move personally. I like the Parsons side. Bet him at minus 135. I think he's the better grappler of the two. I think he's got better cardio of the two. I think he's, again, if anybody's going to have dominant wrestling success in this fight, it's going to be Parsons. I think he's probably commensurate striker as well to Elliott. So, to me, I closer to pick him here. I just don't really get it.
Yeah, I haven't bet it yet, but I'm probably going to bet Parsons, to be honest. I feel Elliott's not bad. He's got he's an okay boxer. He's an okay grappler, but he's kind of a low volume striker, to be honest. And he tends to have his best fights when he can dominate the grappling. But in this fight, I think he's the worst grappler. I think Parsons is a bit stronger than he is. Elliott used to fight at 55. I think Parsons is a bit more durable than Elliott is. On top of which, Elliott just has really very little power at all on the feet. Parsons is a guy I really think is going to get knocked out soon. But Elliott just doesn't pack much power, whereas Parsons actually has some pop. And the big difference for me between the two, because I expect a lot of scrambles in this fight, to be honest. I don't know that it'll be one way.
Not early, no.
Yeah, but I think Parsons' work rate is just so different than anything Oban Elliott's ever seen. Parsons, he's got large flaws. Obviously, I played Giles against him.
I played Parsons there. I think he had an argument to. I think he had an argument to win that.
It was a good fight. It was a close fight. It was a very close fight. But I feel like one of the reasons I played Giles because I felt Giles had real stopping power, and I just don't see that with Elliott. And if you can't put Parsons down, I feel like he's a motherfucker to deal with just because this guy's going to attempt takedowns and throw strikes basically nonstop all fight. I think he's very, very likely to win the final round. And honestly, I think even at his best here, Elliott's probably at worst break even with Parsons while they're fresh. And I might even favor Parsons in the early parts of this fight. So yeah, like I think Parsons should be like minus 185 here. I'm going to bet him. I've just been waiting to see how far the line's going to dip. But we'll see because it's still going. It came all the way down from like minus 170 to minus 140. So we'll see what it does. Moving on. What a fight. Modestas Bukauskas, Marcin Prachnio. Current price is Bukauskas minus 151. The comeback on Prachnio plus 131. I don't have very strong feelings here. I kind of like the
GTD.
I kind of like the under, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wow, it got smashed though.
Yeah, I was gonna say GTD was minus 150 last time I looked.
Yeah, the under was all the way up at plus 170 for a bit. Now it's a plus 140. I lean Prachnio. I think he throws a lot more volume than Modestas does. I think he's a bit better of a striker in the aggregate. What I will say though, and the one thing that's kind of deterring me, Matthew's saying that's a real fiat. The one thing that's kind of deterring me, though, is I do think Bukauskas has a really nice, sharp counter right hand, and Proc is there to get cracked when he enters. Like he strikes me as the kind of guy that a good counter striker could really just chew him up. And so I could see Bukauskas having success with that. The big problem for me with Bukauskas is it's just work rate, man. I mean, this guy's beaten nobody good. Even the Palga win, he was kind of lucky to get. So if he doesn't put
that was garbage,
Proc
in my opinion. I bet Pog at plus 170. I thought, again, close fight. Not screaming Robert or anything, but I mean, I didn't think he deserved to win that.
Like, yeah, Kyle says not sure we can lay chalk on Modestas. It's an interesting. I think this is a close fight, personally. I kind of lean the Modestas side just because I do think he's got a bit more finishing equity on his side. But, I mean, the distance striking stats favor Prachnio tremendously here. I think the leg kicks could be huge in this fight. And I think if they go 15 minutes, I kind of lean Prachnio. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a competitive fight. I slightly lean Modestas just because I think he has more likely chance to finish. But yeah, what do you think?
I'm kind of leaning the same way as well. Not only because of the slight finishing upside too. It's just because for round 3 for me, it's tough to not think Modestas wins it here. Like I think Prachnio's cardio is just tragically awful.
But so, do you think Modestas is as good? So that's kind of my thing too.
I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I should just say, like you mentioned already, his work rate's not good. So that's kind of the big issue.
But I do agree with you about cardio. Prachnio's cardio is really just.
But that's kind of why I think GTD is probably good. I think Prachnio can minimize the minimal exchanges that are coming back from Modestas, and Modestas, again, not super durable, but I don't think Prachnio is any big hitter by any means.
Yeah, and that's why I'm ultimately. I mean, I'm with you. The cardio thing is just scary. Yeah. Lochran and Jake Hadley. Current price: Callan Lochran minus 200. The comeback on Hadley plus 170. Thoughts, your legs?
Callan is the first leg of one of the parlays that I have at plus 110. The parlay closes out at plus 110. On top of it being short notice for Hadley and up a weight class, obviously. I think there's just a ton of advantages for Callan. I think he's much stronger here. I think he's the much better wrestler, much better grappler of the two. Hadley is going to accept bottom position, in my opinion. And outside of Hadley guard subbing him, which I don't see it being a high percentage outcome, I think Callan does land takedowns, can win a decision at a high clip, potentially get a late finish because I do think the cardio is massive in his favor. Hadley does start pretty strong on the feet, decent power, throws with intent, but I think Callan's the better striker, personally.
Yeah, I mean, we're aligned here. I feel like I parlayed Callan minus 200 for with Parkin. That's plus 104, your unit and a half. I really hope Hadley's getting a contract extension for taking this fight, because this fight
so, right?
You had a short notice fight up a weight class. This kind of fight is just a terrible decision, in my opinion. Like, the macro on that is terrible to begin with. He's moving up a weight class on short notice. Then you look into the stylistics, and I mean, Callan is the much, much stronger fighter than Jake is. I think Jake could have some success standing if they stand for 15. I think he's a bit better of a striker, just because, you know, Callan is hittable, man. And like Jake is not as good as Taylor Lapalus by any means, but obviously Callan kind of caused him some issues in that fight. So, or I should say, Lapalus was able to kind of just tee off on Callan. So like, that is a concern. But ultimately, I think Callan's going to get takedowns pretty easily here. To your point, Jake plays guard. Is very, very happy to do so. I really, really don't think he's going to triangle Callan here, which so
got no neck.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, literally. And Callan's got, you know, Callan comes from a decent jiu-jitsu background himself. Yeah. Jake's just a squid when he gets put on the ground. I mean, this guy's a bad minute winner. I've said it since the first day he was in the fucking UFC, while everybody else was calling.
I was gonna say, didn't you bet Cody
champion? I bet Cody against him, and I bet Charles against him. And I bet Candelario against him. I think
that's another point to his. That's another point to him getting a contract extension too. Guys on a 2-fight losing streak. It's like,
yeah. So
you wouldn't want to go.
I think Callan's got better cardio. I think stylistically, it's a pretty tough. It's a pretty tough fight for him here. I think Callan's got like a -300 to 400 path if he takes it wrestling. Now, will he take it? I don't know. Sometimes I get a bit annoyed at how, like, I didn't like how in the Pacheco fight he just decided to stand with him for 5 minutes and did get hurt a bit, you know, doing it. So Hadley competing standing wouldn't shock me, but ultimately the upside for Callan via grappling is just massive. Callan's apparently the mush of the week, but I am going to see parlaying him. So
I believe Callan is on a 6 card losing streak, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody
he'll get back on track. He'll get back on track
for sure.
Actually.
For sure.
But I am hoping it's not this week.
Me too.
Because I did parlay Callan Lochran here. Moving on, though, we've got Molly McCann. She's taking on Bruna Brazil. And it is Molly McCann big number, -310. Come back on Bruna, +250. I think the price is fine, honestly.
Yeah.
The issue is I understand why people want to bet Bruna here, because I had kind of the same instinct as well when I saw how big the price is. Dude, the woman just has no head movement at all. She is so easy to touch on the chin. She is so easy to close distance on. I really don't see a whole lot that's different from the Denise Gomes fight. The only difference is in this fight, she does not have a grappling advantage, Bruna. Like, Molly has got a significant grappling advantage. Like, if they stay at distance for 15, could Bruna win? Yeah. But I think Molly's got way better hardware. I think she's a much more dangerous striker. Bruna's there to get clipped, and I think Molly's got a grappling edge. Plus, she's fighting at home. Originally a 125er. I think Molly should win this pretty easy. What do you think, Legs?
What do you think about the GTD -130?
I was looking at that, but like I just seen Bruna get hurt too many times. You know, like the way and Molly is fucking aggressive.
Yeah,
she is aggressive. Yeah. You know, she will throw hands.
No, I don't disagree. I think almost all of the finishing upside is on Molly. So yeah. Again, don't disagree.
AW saying Molly is a lock. I kind of think so as well, to be honest. I'm not laying -300 on Molly McCann. I thought about it when it was like -250, to be honest with you. But I'm like, if I bet Molly McCann at -250 and she loses, I'm going to need, I'm going to find the nearest cliff and jump. So, but I do think she's going to win this pretty easily.
Yeah, agreed.
Moving on, we have got Nathaniel Wood taking on Daniel Pineda. Nathaniel Wood, current price is -410. The comeback on Pineda +310. Thoughts?
In a sense, I get why people could think why Pineda would be live. You know, the guy's a physical tank in round one, pretty solid, good grappler, can probably outmuscle Wood, but like his cardio is again tragically bad. I bet the Caceres under in his last fight, which honestly was a shame that fight didn't even get finished. But yeah, his cardio is just honestly really tragic. The only knock I can really give to Wood is that he is up a weight class of 145. I mean, it's pretty much mentioned on every podcast this week. It's not a great weight class for him. He should be at 135. The size just doesn't really fill him out. But I think Wood should be fine here. I don't think much of Pineda outside of round 1 personally.
Yeah, I mean, Wood should beat his ass, but I do worry rewatching the Naimov fight how much he was getting just hossed physically. And obviously Pineda is a tank who's 40, and who knows? I mean, maybe he's back on the sauce. We don't know. He's certainly not afraid to use it. I worry that he'll just be too strong and be able to take him down and put him in dangerous positions. Like that is a real concern for me, to be honest. I am not betting Pineda, though, because to your point, I do think if he can't do that, the skill gap between these two is just massive. I mean, rewatching the Andre Fili fight with Pineda it's an ugly fucking look, man. And like the truth of the matter is, I mean, if you look at Pineda's wins in recent history, Tucker Lotso, I don't even know if he's with the promotion anymore, but he's not very good. And then the only other win he had in this time when he came back was Herbert Burns, which, again, pretty meaningless win. So I do think Wood should be able to beat his ass. I worry about the size, which is why I don't really view Wood as parlay fodder, because like if it turns out Pineda can just get on top and just be too strong for him, like you're going to be sweating your ass off. But my instinct is Wood's going to cover his price, to be honest with you. Moving on, though, main card, first fight. I don't know if this is a banger fight. I feel like people think this is a banger fight, and I feel like it has a high potential to be extremely disappointing. We have Arnold Allen taking on Giga Chikadze. Allen minus 230, comeback Chikadze plus 190. Honestly, if you guaranteed me they'd stand for 15 minutes, I'd probably bet Chikadze just because Allen's kind of low volume. Chikadze is pretty low volume. Chikadze is a pretty skilled striker. His stats are better than Allen's are. But my issue is, and why I just can't really get there on Giga, is I've seen Allen come out wrestling aggressively before. He did it against Sadiq Youssef, wrestled super aggressively in that fight. And if he does that here, if he gets on top of Giga, that's maybe a round of the fight. Because Allen is a decent grappler, to his credit. He doesn't grapple often, but he's not bad at it. And I just Allen's a smart fighter. I don't see why he wouldn't do that. Now, maybe he won't, and it'll play out close. And I do think, as I said, if they strike, it's going to be very competitive, and I would definitely bet they get the number. But I just think the upside, the grappling upside on the Allen side, I think he's more durable, and he's obviously got way better cardio. Plus, he's a much younger fighter. I think he's got a couple edges here that I don't really want to fade into this fight. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I kind of align with you similarly here again. If Allen does end up just striking with Giga for 15, it's going to be a close fight. I don't see that happening. I see him going to the wrestling. I see him having better cardio. I see him having more stopping power personally. I do think the footwork and Allen also being a southpaw is going to give Giga some issues. I mean, we saw even in the Caceres fight, people are saying, oh, Giga didn't have a great performance. But I think to me, honestly, that's more so on the Caceres side of his footwork, him giving him issues landing those strikes.
Yeah, and also Caceres broke both of his hands in the first round of that fight. So,
tough.
Probably had a detrimental impact. Yeah. But I'm with you. Moving on, curious what you think here. I feel this fight's got a lot of two-way action. It seems like there's a lot of hot takes on it. We got Christian Leroy Duncan taking on Gregory Rodriguez. Current price, Christian Leroy Duncan minus 141. Comeback on RoboCop plus 121. What are your thoughts here?
Definitely a tough one, and by far the toughest one on the card for me. I mean, going into tape, I wanted to bet RoboCop, but coming out, I really don't, and I'm kind of just fine passing on the fight. I mean, I do think RoboCop's obviously fought the better guys. I think on the feet, probably is the harder hitter of the two. If he goes to the wrestling, I think he can land takedowns here, but it's just so tough for me watching a ton of these fights, and he's getting hurt. He's getting wobbled. He's pretty slow in general. I think Duncan's much faster on the feet. I think Duncan's got better cardio of the two. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a close fight. I don't have a strong opinion personally, but I would lean the RoboCop side on the wrestling.
I lean the RoboCop side as well. I don't know if I'll bet it though. I feel Duncan is a weird fighter. Obviously, successfully faded him with Armin Petrosian, unsuccessfully tried to with Dusko. He's very big. He's very long, very fast, very dynamic, good athlete, very dangerous. But, Robo is much more proven. He's more experienced. He's fought better competition and beaten better competition. He's the better wrestler. He's probably the better technical striker of the two. And so it's like, why am I not betting RoboCop at plus 121? With all of that said, I just think there's a big durability gap here, like a big durability gap, in my opinion. Like, I think Robo is, first of all, for as good as Robo is, he can be clipped. His defense isn't exactly the best in the world. It's not horrible, but it's like, he can be touched, and we've seen it happen a bunch.
Yeah. I mean, he's relying pretty much all on hardware.
Yeah, and I actually think he's kind of, I don't want to say fragile, but I don't think his durability is great either. And he's fighting a guy in Duncan who is very fast, explosive, and hits very hard, and by the looks of it, looks very, very durable. The obvious path for RoboCop here would be to go to the grappling, but he never goes to the grappling, so I'm not going to trust him to come out grappling here.
Yep.
I think he's the better striker. I think the fight should play close. But I mean, Duncan's the younger fighter. He's the better athlete, and he's the faster fighter, and I think he's the more dangerous of the two. So it's kind of scary, and as much as I would normally be inclined to play RoboCop, I feel like I'm picturing in my head Duncan knocking him out, and so
yeah.
Maybe I'll get there if the line keeps going, but like my instinct, my gut is that Duncan's going to knock him out, to be honest. And I'm not even like that high on Duncan. It's kind of weird. It feels trappy, to be honest, because I know a million people on the RoboCop side of things, and yet the line's moving towards Duncan. So
I'll be honest with you, I'd rather bet an over, if anything. Over 1.5.
An over?
Over one. No, hear me out.
Little sweaty one.
Sweaty over 1.5 minus 140.
I don't hate that, actually.
I think that could be worth the sweat.
Duncan's not high volume either, so
no.
That's interesting. Yeah, maybe. Moving on. Woo, what a fight here. The feature bout of the evening. Bobby Green, Patty the Baddie Pimblett.
Hey. You got to watch yourself there, John. Address him by his real name.
Sadie? Patty the Sadie?
No. Come on.
Oh, King Green. I'm not doing that. It's Bobby Green. He's always been Bobby Green. I bet King Green here at minus 120. And the money's still coming in on Patty after that. I am
shocked, to say the least.
I'm a little surprised. I actually thought Bobby Green would get a bit more public respect than he's gotten this week, honestly.
Just because Bobby's like minus 150.
Yeah, same. Bobby's like such a household name at this point. I was thinking that, people would remember get some love. Fight. But instead it's all Pat. And I get, Patty's 5-0 in the UFC, so I have Bobby to win 2 units here, though. I think this is a pretty good fight for him. The obvious concern is he's 37 years old and Patty's 29. Patty does seem like he could be on steroids. He looked huge against Tony Ferguson. But, when taping the fight, I don't think Patty has gotten any better in his entire time in the UFC. I think he's kind of a finished product. And that finished product is a opportunistic jiu-jitsu guy who's dangerous. But he's a mediocre wrestler, and he's a terrible striker. Now, he's got some power. And, like, if he flatlines Green here, especially at 37, I wouldn't be, like, shocked. But I'd be surprised, honestly. I don't put his finishing equity like that high in this fight. I would be a little surprised, but it could happen, obviously. But if it doesn't happen, maybe Patty can get a takedown or two. I don't think he's going to control Bobby Green, though. I actually think if either of these guys was to get like 5 minutes of top time, it would be Bobby, not Patty. I think he's the better wrestler, and Patty's kind of a jank lord. And on the feet, Bobby's going to fuck Patty up standing. Like, if he doesn't get cracked and finished in an exchange, he is going to beat his ass on the feet. Unless he just gets really old overnight, which could happen. I mean, he's 37. It's in the realm of possible outcomes. But he's so much better at striking than Patty is. So much slicker on the counter. So much faster. Patty, he still comes in, chin in the air, no defense at all. It just seems like it really should be target practice for Bobby, And the cardio-wise, the cardio gap here is huge. Patty slows down every fight. Bobby's got great cardio, and he's got great volume. Kyle said he's got more ways to win. I honestly don't really think so, to be honest. The UK judges is a way that he could win this fight.
But the better grappler isn't really the case.
I think he's the better submission grappler, but I don't think he's the better wrestler. Yeah. It's
Patty be able to get it down. I don't know.
Maybe 1 or 2 takedowns. I think he can get.
I don't.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. Anyway, I would be surprised. If he dominates Bobby grappling, I'd be really, really impressed, honestly. I just don't think that's going to happen, though. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think Patty could have a moments-based decision here where he lands a couple big strikes and maybe gets some favorable hometown judging. I think him getting an opportunistic sub or clipping Bobby and knocking him out in exchange is possible. But I do think Bobby's obviously the much better fighter. Like, I kind of think it should be minus 160, minus 170, Bobby Green here. I bet him here to win 2 units. How about you?
I played Bobby to win a unit, and to be honest with you, I don't even think the sub is on the table, really. I think the decision or, again, catching Bobby early would be the only path to victory for me for Patty. But, yeah, Bobby's much better striker here, like you had mentioned, much better cardio. I don't really see why we're getting to pick him here. Like, to me, Bobby's much better on the feet.
What do you think about fight doesn't go the distance? Glenbot asked.
I think Bobby could finish Patty. I think Patty could finish Bobby. But again,
I kind of make it like minus 200 to go the distance, in my opinion.
See, here's my issue with fight doesn't go and why, or not fight doesn't go, I should say, but why that at that price and this fight being a pick'em doesn't make a ton of sense to me, because I think you have to really dramatically overrate Patty's KO equity to get to near pick'em.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the guy's knocking out Bobby, too, for what it's worth. Like, Jalen Turner and Drew Dober, like, they hit way different than how Patty hits.
I was going to say, they would put Patty down in a round.
Yeah, and like, Patty's got some pop, but, I mean, nowhere near the level of those guys. But yeah, I mean, look, maybe we're crazy. I mean, the line keeps moving. I mean, look, if Bobby goes plus, I'm going to add another unit or unit and a half to it.
Yeah.
I think this is pretty dumb, but I mean, we'll see.
There's certainly some worry with Bobby's theatrics in general in the cage, but like, again, the skill gap.
Yeah, but
the skill gap to me is massive enough to where pick'em makes no sense.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I keep hearing that every Bobby fight that Bobby gives fights away, but like, look at the fights, the close fights he's lost. Ricard close, way better than Patty is. Thiago Moises, way better than Patty is. Lando at his peak, also better than Patty is. In my opinion, anyway. Like, all of these guys, like when he fights like guys not on his level, like Nasrat Hack cuts through him. You know, even Dober, he was cutting through him before he got knocked out. But like Ali Quinta cuts through him. Jim Miller cuts through him. Like, I feel like Jim Miller, while he's fresh, is probably a better striker than Patty is by like a decent margin. Personally,
I'm pretty sure Bobby was a dog there, wasn't he? Like plus 130, or no? He was a favorite
against Miller. No. Oh, it's Nasrat. No, Nasrat. He was like maybe he was like pick'em. It was a very closely. Yeah, it was a very closely lined fight. Paul says Patty cannot win a decision. I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like I was having a conversation with a friend this week who's like very sharp, and he was like, I kind of think Patty's likely to have between like 1 and 3 big moments in the fight, and the big question is like, is that enough to swing a decision? And you never really know, you know, whether that could be enough to swing a decision, especially these days. So like Patty winning, I've seen crazier things, but I do think Bobby's gonna take care of business here, honestly.
Yeah.
Dogfather said thoughts. I actually lean the GTD, honestly. Like I made it like minus 185, minus 200 to go the distance. So yeah. But I like Bobby. It's King Green season.
Yep.
Moving on though. Whew! 2 title fights. We got the interim title fight. We got Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blaydes. You know, the first time this was booked, I had 2.5 units on Curtis Blaydes plus 115. This time I have 2.5 units on Curtis Blaydes plus 317. And I may end up adding to that position, honestly. The line is ridiculous. Like, yeah, I think Aspinall is better. I think if you were to like give me like an outcome curve or show a distribution of outcomes, I would make the most likely or the highest percentage outcome in the fight an Aspinall KO in the first 7 minutes. Like, I think that's fair. But I think it's hard to really go past like 40% with that, I think. And I think when you go past that, it starts to get very Blaydes heavy, very, 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 very fast. You know, like I think Blaydes has much more proven cardio. I mean, one of the only times we've seen Aspinall past round 1, he looked like he was slowing down pretty hard against Arlovsky, to be honest, in that fight. Yeah. He's 1 and 2 in fights that leave round 1. So I just trust Blaydes a lot more down the stretch. And honestly, even fresh, like if these guys bite down and throw, it's not like Curtis Blaydes is drawing dead in that kind of fight at all. You know, the guy hits hard. He's a dangerous striker. You know, now he's probably not quite as durable as Tom, and Tom is a more lethal striker for sure. But you get what I'm saying. Like, I don't think he's drawing dead. And then you've got to have, like, there's, like, what happens if Blaydes just remembers he's allowed to wrestle and starts wrestling and shoots and puts him on the ground in 30 seconds and just skull fucks him for 25 minutes? Like, I feel like that's an actual outcome that could happen, that Blaydes is like, oh, yeah, you know, I was a Division I wrestler. I should probably, you know, go and wrestle.
But then people are going to go, oh, but John, he did wrestle against Sergey Pavlovich. Oh, he's going to wrestle here.
Believe me, and I'm keeping it in mind.
And I completely agree with that as well. But it's like, we're talking about plus 300 here.
That's what I'm saying. And I actually think there are iterations of this where Blaydes could potentially look a large favorite at plus 300. And so, I mean, the line's crazy. I think Aspinall should be minus. I put Aspinall at like 63% here, like minus 170. I think that's fair. It's like, I don't think I can put anybody else in heavyweight, including John Jones or Sergey Pavlovich, past minus 170 against Curtis Blaydes. You know, the guy's, in my opinion, skill for skill, he's probably the most talented heavyweight in the world. He's just, his biggest enemy is himself. But I mean, plus 300. I mean, that's crazy. So yeah, I have 2.5 units on it. I might add another unit and a half. Like, I want to be heavy on Blaydes. If it goes down, it goes down. But you know, the opportunity to bet Curtis Blaydes at plus 300 is just crazy to me. What do you think?
Doesn't happen often. Doesn't happen often.
Does not happen.
It will probably not happen.
Never happen again.
That's
probably ever again.
I know. And that's probably why I'm going to add at least another half unit to my position I already have, which is a unit of plus 295. Just because, again, I mean, you have to absolutely dramatically overrate an Aspinall round 1 KO to get to minus 400 here. I mean,
Dick's Insider.
It probably listen. I
know
again, it's true. But the thing is, like, people, and I hate it. Week in and week out, will throw these narratives out there, like, oh, Blaydes is like, for this fight specifically. Oh, Blaydes chinny, Aspinall's going to knock him out. Blaydes, horrible fight IQ. He's not going to go to the wrestling. This and that. We're talking about minus 400 though. Like, it was minus 140. It was minus 140 2 fights ago, and the only thing that happened since then, he sleeps Tybura very early. Didn't really learn anything. Fairly predictive in my opinion, and he sleeps Pavlovich in an early fight where we don't see his cardio extended
in a pick'em fight. It was line pick'em.
Right.
Blaydes was minus 160 against Pavlovich 2 fights ago. You know,
and I think that's a big thing here. People are seeing, obviously, Aspinall knocking out Pavlovich knocked out Blaydes, so A's beating C, right? But no, that's when C has value, John.
I agree with you. We're going with C here. C for Curtis fucking Blaydes. He's gonna ship it. I hope. I really do. I really, yeah. Curtis Blaydes is going to summon. I hope he's got some voodoo going on to make that ACL go again.
Now, I will say this, too. Another thing. Now, obviously, the first fight ended super quickly, and there really isn't much to take away from it. But it's like Aspinall was charging in pretty recklessly, and Blaydes was touching him up.
Blaydes didn't seem really scared to bite down with it.
Right. He was ready to bite down on the
I will say this, though. I did think, and the most concerning thing for Blaydes to me is I did think Blaydes seemed a bit spooked by Pavlovich on the feet, you know. He seemed kind of lost by the jab, like he was just getting hit with over and over again.
Honestly, on rewatch for that fight, it's just a huge bugaboo that he didn't go to the wrestling at all.
Oh. He did once after he was already stung a few times, you know. Yeah, it's. But I'm ready for it. If he goes down, he goes down. But I'm riding with Curtis Blaydes the day I die. So especially at plus 300. Anyway, that brings us to the main event of the evening. Leon Rocky Edwards. He's minus 250. He's taking on Belal Muhammad, who's plus 210. I bet Leon early in the week at minus 213. I think he should be about minus 300 here, to be honest. I feel I'll leave some meat on the bone for you to break this down, Lex. My view of this fight is that Belal probably needs back takes to win. I can't really picture Belal outstriking him standing. I can't really picture Belal winning in the clinch in this fight. And I have a very hard time seeing Belal controlling Leon chest to chest. So I think the best path for Belal here is getting a couple opportunistic back takes and body triangles. I just don't know how likely that is. I mean, Leon's a very good grappler, man. He really is. You know, this guy just fought 75 minutes with Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman, who were bringing much different wrestling threats than what Belal is going to bring in there. Even if you want to say Usman in the second fight was compromised, I promise you the wrestling he was bringing is a lot better than Belal's wrestling. So I can imagine Belal getting 2 or 3, maybe even 4 takedowns. I just have a much harder time seeing Belal controlling him for 10 plus minutes, which is what I think he's going to probably need to do to win this fight. Just because, especially, even if you think the volume is going to be even between the two, the impact of their strikes is going to favor Edwards to such a massive degree here. He throws harder, he hits harder, he's bigger, he's longer, he's more dangerous. And he's been fighting in title fights. The truth is, I love Belal. I appreciate everything he's done. But this little run has been... Gilbert Burns got hurt in round 1 of their fight. Sean Brady can't strike. Vicente Luque was literally beating this guy's ass on the feet. Now, Vicente Luque, fun fighter, fun action fighter, not a great technical striker, though. And if Luque is outlanding you by 20 strikes on the feet, you're not going to outstrike Leon Edwards. So I think he needs back takes. I think it could happen. Maybe he can get a sub here. But I think Rocky should be about minus 300. What do you think, Lex?
Yeah, I parlayed him at minus 250 to close out my parlay with Kalen for 2 units at plus 110. Largely think kind of similar. I think Belal needs massive grappling success and needs to get it going early because I think Leon's the much better striker here. I mean, people want to talk about the first fight, like we just talked in the last fight with Blaydes. Oh, we didn't learn anything from the 20 seconds. Totally agree. This fight, it went a full round. Leon convincingly won it on all 3 judges, outstruck Belal, even landed a decent head kick on him as well. Yeah, I think Leon should be a huge favorite here. Much better striker. I think he can stuff most of the wrestling here, and I think the cardio is pretty commensurate. I do think Belal probably has better cardio, but yeah, I think Leon winning the early rounds here is a very high percentage outcome.
I don't even the late rounds, honestly. Like Kyle brought up, he needed a motivational speech against Usman, but first of all, it was an altitude. Second of all, I mean, the difference in both wrestling, but also just pure hardware that Usman brings, even on the feet, between Belal is massive. Usman's a big hitter who's super durable and fights at a high pace. He's also a former Olympian alternate.
I think people are underrating Usman now after seeing these losses and just kind of saying, he wasn't that great. Wasn't there?
Usman just went 50-50 with Hamzat, on short notice.
I was going to say, give me the Usman that fought Masvidal against Belal, pretty much any day.
Minus 1,000, literally.
Yeah.
And I say this as a Belal fan. I'm actually not really a Leon fan, and I've always been a Belal fan. I don't want to put too much stock in that first fight because, again, it was 5 minutes and things can change over 25 minutes, obviously. But it's very, very clear that, the kind of shots Leon was throwing and landing with were way different than what Belal was throwing and landing with, I actually think the best comp to this fight, if you actually wanted to find one, is when Leon fought Ardene, and that was Ardene shortly after he fought Colby Covington for the title. And to me, that's the best comp for what we're going to see here. Ardene, he mostly matched the volume of Leon, but he kind of just got bullied. Leon a bit better technically, better in the clinch, and was able to just kind of do that. And I think that's what you're going to see here. It'll be boring. Some people are going to say that there was no value on it because Leon's margins are thin. But I think Leon wins on thin margins a lot more often than not here. So maybe I'm crazy, but I'm rolling with Leon Edwards here. You agree?
Yep.
All right.
No, totally. No, I said that earlier. Yeah, totally agree. I think Leon money line's better than any kind of overs or GTDs here.
And I'll drop on Friday or Saturday. I'll just put out the DraftKings props that are interesting. That market has gotten ridiculous. Their strike takedown markets. It's just so beatable. So
I was gonna say, I'm free on Friday nights or whatnot. We can definitely start doing shows with that.
Maybe do a little half-hour show chatting.
Chatting. Just shout out the props. Yeah,
that would be cool. Yeah, I'd be down to do that. So yeah, guys, keep an eye out for that. Again, thanks for stopping by tonight. Please drop a like, subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Next week, we got Abu Dhabi, Umar, Corey Sanhagen. We'll be back same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And for 30% off your first month with FightNumbers.com, where you get the live odds screen, the John Kelly DFS predictions, and Pepe, Evan, and Ozzy's picks, use the promo code CLUB. It's worth it. It'll make you money. Thanks, everybody. Good night. God bless. Good luck. Peace.